It's Mon Mothma's HoloNet, and we're just posting on it. Welcome back to Mothmanet News and our 50-day countdown to Andor Season 2. Today's guest, can you please introduce yourself and our topic for the day?
Hello, my name is Louay, and today we're going to be talking about Luthen Rael.
More like Luthen Rael me.
Jesus. Already.
Unhinged, right out of the gate. I've been making that joke since 2022.
I know.
You could not be surprised. Stellan Skarsgård can get it. He is an old man, but he can get it. Thank you so much for joining us, Louay, and thank you so much for putting up with me for the past 6.5 years as a friend and partner.
It's a skill.
Shall we dive in?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's talk about Luthen for a little bit. He is a wonderful character. I think he's one of the I think Luthen really showcases just how Tony Gilroy can create a funky little guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, what a character design. Because I just love the idea of, because like so often artists are very fundamental in revolutionary movements. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in his own roundabout way, as the proprietor of an art gallery, along with Clea, we really see like a different side of that, because his is more like, oh, this is like the historical context of these things. And we do see instances where he's like, oh, you can just like make it up, make it important to you, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of to me goes along in the lines with the theme of the show where everyone has their own rebellion. Like, I don't know how you feel about all of that, but that's just a little bit of my 2 cents.
Fair. I mean, I found him really interesting in the first season because he's not necessarily a new type of rebel. Like, he's kind of just Saw Gerrera in a different font, but also it's from a different perspective because Saw is first and soldier, whereas Luthen is more of a spy master. He's more like in the shadows, dealing with contacts. He's basically like a dark version of Mon in a way. Because, like, he deals with personnel as well, but he does it in the less capacity, more in like a spy, organizing different teams, doing it. Like, it's not sinister is the wrong word, but it's a lot darker than what Mon typically has to do in her role in the rebellion. She's more of a charismatic leader. He's more of like the taskmaster, spy master guy.
Yeah. He feels similar to Draven in that way, where, he knows the spies, he knows the missions, he knows all of these things, and he will tell Mon things, but he will also withhold a lot of things from her.
Yeah, it's like in some ways,
in some ways to protect her and the rebellion, but also to protect those assets that they have and those missions, right? I can see Luthen doing something like ordering the strike on Edu, for example, that we see Draven do in Rogue One without Mon's permission, right? And so, it very much does feel like he and Mon are like Mon and Saw. They're two sides of the same coin. But it's different coins that they're two. Yeah. I just think Luthen's a brilliantly written character, and he's another one because yes, at the very core of it, if Mon were caught, the rebellion would be toast, essentially, right? But also, if Luthen gets captured, and that's who the ISB is currently hunting for, that could also spell a lot of disaster because he knows the names of these operatives. He knows where to find them. He knows what they have done, right? He knows where to find Saw. He knows how Mon is involved. He knows how Mon's cousin is involved, right? And he can... Like, this man is the mastermind behind Aldhani. Like, Vel and her team pulled it off, rather well, I'd like to point out, like,
all things considered, yeah.
All things considered, because there were things that happened that couldn't really be accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
Like the commandant having a heart attack, the few soldiers from the garrison coming in and being like, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, you were given the night off for a reason. Right. And so, you know, small little things like that definitely hampered their ability to take it all. But they still made off with what, like 80 million credits?
Yeah.
Or something. And that's huge. Like, if we look at it from Mon is giving Luthen approximately 100,000 credits a month. That's a lot of months for Mon that's giving Mon a little bit more grace to work out the shit that she's got going on with her money laundering scheme.
Yeah. It's interesting how Andor is a much more pragmatic show than we've seen from other OT era stuff. Because, like, in Rebels, for example, the MacGuffin is never money. It's always like, we need people, we need ships, we need fuel. Whereas in this show, it's like, we need money to fund this rebellion. Like, it's very, it's very realistic in that way, which I think is part of what makes it such a great show. And Luthen's a big part of that, because he shows parts of the rebellion that were always implied, like in Legends and stuff, but like you could never really delve into that in the movies or like the more mainstream content, just because, you know, it's mostly primarily made for kids, whereas this show gets to be a bit more adult, and that's really fun.
Yeah. And like, you know, sure, it's like, oh yeah, we need like ships, we need supplies. It's like, yeah, all of that boils down to like money. Like, you need money to pay for that. And this is just, it's just like, oh, so, you know, you guys already have some funding. You guys already have some monetary backing that you are able to use to acquire these things. Or if not, you know how to steal them. Like, you know, and so I do think that, all things considered, like, Luthen understands the way that people, like, pretty much all of the people that he has working with him and for him, that he understands how crucial each and every one of them is to the rebellion. Because it's like, you need people, right? You need sheer numbers. You need people who have some political sway. You need people who are like, fuck that, I have a gun, I'm gonna, you know, shoot as many Imperials as I possibly can. I'm going to steal what I can. And that's the whole point of the network that he has built, right? And, you know, we see characters that aren't necessarily portrayed as like strictly political, that still find ways to get involved with this network. Like Salman Pak, who essentially gave Bix access to the radio so that she could call Luthen and be like, hey, come and buy this stuff, right? Which in turn gives her more power as a business owner to purchase these stolen things and then pass them on to Luthen, who can give them to rebels like Saw Gerrera, Anto Krieger, Maya Pei, like all of these people that need these supplies to hit back against the Empire. Bix, like, Luthen is very much of a middleman, but he is a crucial middleman. Because if Bix had been in charge of getting those things to Saw or Anto or anybody else, it probably would have ended a lot quicker and faster in disaster.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know how to do that thing. That is very much more Luthen's world, but she has a very important role to play within that. And Cassian ultimately becomes a part of it as well, because Luthen's like, yo, he's a thief. He knows how to fight. Like, this kid, like, knows what he's doing. And from Luthen's perspective, Cassian is basically a kid, because like, Luthen is older, right? Yeah. He's older than Mon, right? So I think to all of that, like, in his eyes, like, all of them are younger, and he's responsible for them in a way. So he's happy to be this middleman. We see him more in like a mentorship role with somebody like Lonnie or Clea, even though Clea definitely wears the pants in that relationship. Just the way like he could not tolerate like back talk from Mon or anybody. The second Clay is like, shut it down. You're slipping. Wake the fuck up. He's like, okay. It's so funny to watch because I really hope we get more on their relationship in season 2, because the amount of trust that he needs to have in somebody like Clea, who, if he's not there, is running the operation. She deals with Vel. She's, sent Vel and Cinta on the mission to go and try and find Cassian to get rid of him. Like, so it's just like, if he's the taskmaster, how much power and influence does Clea actually have over him? Mm-hmm. Is she actually the real? Is it a Kanan and Hera situation where he is Spectre 1 and she is Spectre 2 in order to protect her? That is kind of what I'm wondering. More that I think about it.
I think it's more like Luthen definitely has a lot of authority, but she's the one who kind of keeps him honest, like keeps him on the straight and narrow. Like, I think without him or without her, his operation would not necessarily shut down, but it would be a lot harder because, like, I think a perfect analogy is she is to him what Steela was to Saw. In terms of, like, she keeps him from going off the deep end. So if she was gone, I think he would go down the route of paranoia and eventually become what Saw was in Rogue One. Like, I think we're going to see a lot more of her in season 2 just because she's so central to his character and like exploring the aspects of his part of the rebellion, like how all of that works, how all of it happens, because we see it from Luthen. He's not really a people person. Like, he kind of needs Clea for that. Like, she is his face person. Like, she's the one who keeps the operatives in check and like make sure that they're still on board. He's the one who's like, just do the thing. Like, he's not very concerned about the emotions, all that. I think it's because he's an old kind of jaded character. Like, he knows what needs to be done. We see it in his legendary speech that we all love, where he's like,
what do I sacrifice? I burn my sunrise for I burn my future for a sunrise I will never see. That line haunts me because I feel like that line in and of itself, that speech is the link between him, Saw, and Mon. Because you can hear elements of Saw and Mon in that speech. Because both of them willing to sacrifice everything, right? We already can presume Mon is sacrificing, essentially her daughter's future for hope for the rebellion, right? She's sacrificing most of her ambitions that she has had for her life. She sacrifices the path that has been laid out for her. Saw's future does burn, and he will never see that sunrise. Like, and he knows that, right? And so I think for the two, like for Luthen and Saw specifically, it's very much that they can see that they're not the ones who are going to ensure that tomorrow comes.
Yeah.
They just have to make sure that the people who are going to make that happen get to that point. And Mon is one of those people, right?
Yeah.
And, when we talk about Saw in a different video, I will bring up the speech in the Name of the Rebellion, because that scene is critical for the two of them and people misunderstand it so much.
Yeah.
So I love Luthen. So do you think Luthen's gonna make it out of season 2 alive? Because I don't.
No, I don't think so. Like, how is the question.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to get discovered? Because I think his fate is an interesting one, because even if we don't think he's going to make it, how he goes out will matter. Because I think the way, like I've said, Luthen is very much like Saw in terms of like, I will do whatever I need to do to win. And we see by the time of Rebels and later Rogue One that Mon doesn't really ascribe to that anymore. And part of me theorizes that Luthen, whatever happens to him, whatever he does, is the reason why. Like, I think, even though I don't know if I don't think Mon has much contact with Saw at this point in the story, but I think like, that I know of, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think I think that like Luthen kind of jades her worldview and like makes her sort of question the whole results at all cost thing.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but I don't know. It just feels like if they're going to kill him off, it has to be in a significant way, and it has to speak to the story of the characters that go forward, like Mon and Saw, like, and Cassian, like, because he kind of acts like a mentor figure to Cassian in a weird way. It's sort of a Saw Jin relationship with them, where it's like, he does. Well, does he care about Cassian? I don't know if he does. In terms of like as a person, I don't know if he does, but as a resource, he definitely cares about.
I mean, Saw at least Saw cared about Jin as a human child
at the beginning.
Mostly. I mean, he's like, here you go. Here's a popsicle and here's a blaster.
She was the greatest soldier in his cadre. It's fine.
But at the same time, like, so much of like Saw definitely loved Jin. Oh my gosh, we'll get into that more
in the Saw video.
In the Saw video, because you are coming back for that as well.
I am indeed.
Yeah, like, so with the special look that Disney put up on Disney Plus and YouTube with Andor, I was thinking a lot about it, and hear me out. So Dedra is the main person right now within the ISB that is hunting down Luthen, right? She gave him the name Axis. She literally has done so much to try and find him, right? Came close on Ferrix. They were both there, right? And so much of her storyline has been about uncovering all of this. The way that it's framed in the special look is that we see what is quite obviously the Gorman massacre on the verge of happening. And then Dedra says, proceed. Now, there is some triple reverse psychology shit going on in my head with this. So, essentially, first glance, you're like, oh, Dedra's ordering this to happen, right? And I know that that's different from Legends, but this isn't Legends. Canon can handle it in a different way. We don't have that much information for the Gorman massacre in canon. Yeah. And so, however, there's that part of me that's like, Tony wouldn't let them tell us this a month and a half, 2 months away from the show. He wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you can totally put basically that Dedra's doing this in the special look that we're putting out, right? And then I thought, Tony knows that we're smart. So what if he expects us to stop at he's not going to give that away this soon. What if he expects us to stop there and not go to the next level of, that's what Tony wants us to think. Tony Gilroy, you are a convoluted man, and I love you, but I've been waking up with tummy aches. Nerves over Celebration and nerves over Andor season 2. That is it. I wake up with a tummy ache. I'm like, yes. Is it Celebration related or Andor related? So go along with me here, still with that. So if Dedra is there at the Gorman massacre, whether or not she is playing an active
role
in perpetrating it, right? Like giving the order or giving any orders. If she's playing that active role and not like a passive but still complicit because you followed orders type of role, you know what I mean? Like the two differences, right? Like Tarkin is guilty of destroying Alderaan. So are the Death Star techs that followed that order.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have done it without his direct involvement.
I get
but
you.
It wouldn't have happened without their complacency and them following said orders. If Luthen is there, which he might be, that could be where either he gets captured or killed. Because we know that the Gorman massacre is a massive, pivotal turning point for Mon Mothma as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We saw it first in Rebels. It's in canon, in the canon timeline, in Rebels Secret Cargo, because she leaves the Senate after speaking out about the Gorman massacre. We see it in Andor season 1, where it starts off in the very first episode that we see her in, when she's talking to Perrin. Oh, perhaps we should have some Gorman guests for tonight's dinner. Your fun friends just cut off their shipping lanes yesterday. Do you know how many will starve? And then, was it Senator Dow's speech in episode 9? No. It was in the Eye, episode 6. So this is right before Mon gets the news of Aldhani. And there's chaos going on in the Senate. Everyone's receiving this news while she's trying to talk. And she's discussing, like the people of Gorman are peaceful. They've done nothing but request their basic rights. This is all leading up to the Gorman massacre, which ultimately is a tipping point for her in leaving and going to the front lines of the rebellion, right? Dantooine, Yavin 4, all of those places that we see her, that is what causes her to do it. And so if you are right in that part of what pushes her to do those things and slowly begin to chip away at the we can find a diplomatic solution part of her, if part of that has to do with Luthen being captured or killed, because if he is captured, he has a very, very important name that he can give up that would cause a certain senator to get the fuck out of Dodge. And that is her name. He knows that she is involved. Would he do that? He might. We don't know. Like, I don't want to believe that of Luthen.
This is the same guy who let a rebel operation happen that he knew was going to fail just so he could keep his source within the IS. I don't know. If he did do it, like, it would have to be some Vader level of interrogation to get him to crack. Because, like,
which I can see them doing. We have seen it. We have seen it.
Yeah.
Right? We have Dr. Gorst in the working with the ISB. Like, I don't think that if he was put to that kind of interrogation, if he would be able to withstand it for long. Maybe slightly longer than the average person, but not that much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't think he would do it willingly. Like, you wouldn't just be sat down at a table and he'd be like, all right, it's Mon Mothma, okay? She's been doing money laundering. She's been giving me money. This is what we've been doing with it. Like, it wouldn't be like that. It would very much be in order to make the torture stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But also, I feel like if he gave her up, she would be taken out of play. Like, being captured and disappeared or straight up killed. Like, I don't know. I feel like it would cause some suspension. They keep her around long enough for her to leave the Senate.
That's true.
Because Palpatine's not above killing senators. Like,
we've seen him do it in various things. More so alluded to than actually like seeing it, but we know what he will do if he feels threatened. I spilled some tea. I'm so sorry. That's the tea about Luthen. Yeah, like I don't think that he would do it on purpose. But again, like Mon does flee the Senate. She is fleeing Coruscant. They are after her hardcore, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if she were able to get the information that this was going to happen even a couple hours before her speech, that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spoil The Mask of Fear for you because you haven't read it yet. You should read it. But she has people who have sources within Imperial intelligence and the ISB as well. And also, like, if Lonnie were to get wind of this, I can see him reaching out to Clea and being like, hey, yo, the ISB, like, Lonnie and Clea would both know that the ISB had Luthen. They would know their operatives to protect and get them out of there, right? But of course, Mon's not going to leave and not try to get in the final word because that's who she is.
Yeah.
She's going to outlive Palpatine trying to have the last word. That's how I know she survives long past the sequels. She's just like that. Or he could get killed in the Gorman massacre. Who knows? Maybe it has nothing to do with the Gorman massacre. I just think that it's, interesting that Mon and Luthen's first interaction is very quickly followed up by a discussion about, well, technically this discussion was about a dinner party, but the Gormans were brought up.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there could be other clues that we're not taking into account here.
Yeah, definitely.
What those would be. Because a lot of people in Palpatine's cabinet are really sketchy. A lot of people very close to the administration are scary. I'm scared of Sly Moore. She has appeared in multiple nightmares, including a very innocent one where I was Mon's emotional support human at a dinner party, and she was staring at me from across the table, and I was like, this is terrifying. Can she, like, not look at me? Anyways, not going to get into that. Yeah. I think Luthen's going to be pretty relevant in season 2. I'm very excited. I'm not going to be okay.
I mean, I think does happen to him, it definitely is going to inform how all these characters go forward, like Cassian and Saw and Mon, like be a big part of their arcs going forward.
Yeah.
And because I feel like whatever does happen to Saw, whether he's captured, killed, or whatever,
Luthen
is going to react to that and say, we need to go harder. Like They took one of ours, we take a bunch of theirs. Whereas Mon is going to say, all right, this whole
you are cutting out
clearly isn't working. Sorry.
This whole thing.
Whereas like
this whole thing isn't working out.
React to it and be like, we need to go harder against the Empire. Whereas Mon would be like, okay, this whole working from the shadows thing doesn't really work for me. Like we need to show a brave face and like, take a grand stand against the Empire. Whereas with Cassian's the most interesting. Very little about his character regardless. So like where he goes from here will be interesting to see. Well, yeah, but I mean, like leading up to that. That's where
he goes from here. He goes eventually to Scarif and dies.
Because he says the whole line in Rogue One, like, I've done a lot of terrible things for the rebellion. Whereas we haven't, like, we've seen a little bit of that. So I feel like there's still a lot of that going forward. And Luthen is a big part of that because he's the one who taught Cassian how to be a rebel,
think I got like 99% of that.
Fair enough.
Ugh. Sorry to anyone viewing this who is currently watching technology be a cunt.
Yeah.
I'd be like that sometimes.
So what?
Yeah, I wanna watch Cassian do some.
What do we think is the deal with Luthen's ship? Because it's a
modded
funky
as
ship.
fuck. It's modded as fuck. Well, we also know very little about Luthen.
Yeah.
Just in general. So whereas other prominent characters in this show, like I'm gonna say Saw, Luthen, Cassian, and Mon as like 4 of the main characters, essentially. Right?
Yeah.
3 of them we know a few things about. 2 of them have rather a storied history throughout, I'm gonna be perfectly frank here, the canon era, like the post-Disney acquisition era of Star Wars. Right? Because Saw didn't really have too much of a place in Legends, because the Clone Wars was always canon. I don't know. Maybe Saw has like 37 trillion Legend stories out there that I don't know about. But like Mon was a very prominent figure in Legends. Like we owe so much of who she is now to Legends, because they didn't give a fuck about her in canon in the beginning. And yeah,
it's not that they didn't give a fuck. She just wasn't contextualized. Just in Star Wars, it's like they kind of just appear first, and then they're like, we don't know who this is. They just kind of exist, and then all the other stories are the ones that flesh them out. Like Quinlan Voss was an extra in Phantom Menace.
Quinlan Voss's baby girl. Who's
Andor,
the most baby girl? Who? Yeah, wait. It's Melshi. Melshi is the ultimate baby girl
of Andor. Yeah.
Yeah. We love Melshi. I did you think Melshi and Luthen are gonna meet?
Possibly.
My favorite thing about Luthen, I think, is that he had doubts about Skeen. Didn't we all? Didn't we all? It's like, I recruited Taramyn myself. Nemik, Gorn, they'll all be remembered. And I was like, that's it. Just Clea, he had doubts about Skeen. It's one less thing to worry about. Just fucking ice cold.
He works for Luthen.
That's true. I do, okay, I know this is a little bit more about Clea than Luthen, but I do like the speculation that Clea and Vel are exes. But Vel definitely has a type when it comes to women. Women that are mean to her. Is Vel Sartha a bottom? Discuss. Yes. Yeah, so why did you want to speak about Luthen specifically?
Honestly, I think I just found him to be one of the most interesting characters in the first season. Like a lot of people have this sanitized ideal of what the rebellion is, and like, oh, it's this no. And like, you know, the movies kind of support this with like rebellions are built on hope. Like, and those are all cool, fun ideals, but at the same time, like, this is a totalitarian fascist. You can't, to put it in Saw's terms, you can't win on their terms.
Yeah.
And I feel like this show is very much encapsulating that, because I think that the rebellion gets to be heroic in the future. Like, I don't think Luthen would consider himself a hero, because he's like, I do all the dirty work to lead up to, like, and he sacrifices a lot. Like, he sacrifices people, he sacrifices his own morality, all in the event in the Empire, and like actually build lasting change. And even if he doesn't live to see it, the rebellion wouldn't effectively exist without people.
Yeah, without people like him. Yeah, he is very crucial to the full embodiment of all of the ideals of what the rebellion is going for. Because, like Nemec says, that freedom is like a pure ideal, right?
Yeah.
And I think Nemec's actually really intelligent. I think a lot of what Nemec's manifesto that we hear in the monologue type thing that Alex Lothar did with the manifesto is it's very much aligned with Mon's ideas of the rebellion. Mm-hmm. And even still, we see Nemec being like, hey, mercenaries, like as he perceives Cassian to be, right? Or Clem as he knows him, right? Even though he's like, I don't even think Clem's your real name. Again, like, why would a mercenary give you their real name?
Yeah.
And I think that in a way, like Cassian and his role as a mercenary and pulling off Aldhani and being so devoted, even though he's like, no, I'm just here for the money. I'm just here for whatever. Like, that has an impact on Nemec. Because Nemec's like, not everyone needs to completely commit to every single ideal that we lay out. What matters is that we have people. What matters is that we have weapons and people who can use those weapons, right? And he acknowledges like, hey, mercenaries are effectively a weapon in and of themselves. So if we can get mercenaries on our side, that will actually be helpful in the long run. And I think I need Mon to be exposed to Nemec's manifesto because she'd be like, this little boy is cooking. Can I replace Lita with Karis Nemec, please? Right. Joking, fully joking. Oh my gosh, I love Lita. We're not gonna hate on Lita here. That was a joke. And so with all of that, I do think that Luthen acts in the same way for Mon, as does Saw. Like, Luthen and Saw act in the same kind of capacity for Mon that Cassian does for Nemec, right? Yeah. They grow their ideals of what a rebel can be. Not necessarily what a rebel should be, because in their minds it's this big lofty ideal where you're fighting for freedom and justice and all that's right in the galaxy. But you also do need those people that are like, I mean, I got a bunch of fucking blasters and I'll shoot some stormtroopers. Let's go, right? So you need to have those people that are willing to bring those ideas into the lives of somebody who is so idealistic. And I would go so far as to say that Nemec, ultimately, if he had survived, would have been an asset to the rebellion in that idealistic way. Because he's like, I can fight. Like, I know how to hold a blaster, but my role is preparing for the future that the soldiers are going to fight to make happen. I'm going to make sure that the people who die don't die in vain, and that, you know, the next generation doesn't have to worry about this. And of course, Palpatine fucks the next generation as well. because this bitch just had to be immortal. I mean, people were like, oh, I'm so surprised that Palpatine was cloning himself and was so worried about immortality. And I'm like, did you watch Revenge of the Sith? Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Because I don't think that you understood it.
It's funny how the tragedy, like, he died. The tragedy was that his own apprentice killed him.
I mean, c'est la vie. That's life's life with a Sith. Like, that's how it happens for a Sith Lord. It's how it's meant to happen. You die at your apprentice's hands. That rule. That's true. That is very true. Yeah. It's a whole thing. I mean, technically, if Palpatine was strictly adhering to the rule of two, he should have, you know, killed Maul himself. He should have killed Dooku himself. He should have killed like Vader himself. He shouldn't have tried to get other people to do it for him.
He sure as shit tried to kill Maul.
That's true.
He put his best effort into it.
He did try. Gold
but he's also
star
not
for
one.
effort.
He's also not one to get rid of a resource if he can.
That's
if he can
also
still
true.
use it. Very much
true.
like Luthen. Palpatine is just the Luthen of the Sith.
Jesus Christ. Is Luthen a Jedi?
I'm going that theory to bed. I was never a subscriber of it. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah, I don't think he's Force sensitive at all.
Just because that wouldn't jive with me, because he's like, they have records of who the Jedi were.
Yeah.
He's all daylight.
I think it's like, I've heard speculation, people being like, oh, he's Rael Averross. And I'm like, okay, the only similarity is the name Rael. That is it.
He has Rael in his name. It's canon.
It's canon. I'm like, I don't think that's Rael Averross. Like, Rael Averross is older than, like, slightly older than Qui-Gon. He'd be approaching Dooku's age right now. The age kind of lines up now that I think about it, but I don't think that Luthen is Rael Averross. Because one of the charms of Andor, and I'm also going to say Rogue One, is that they're not, like, these stories are not centered on the Jedi. Yeah. Right? And I love the Jedi. I love a story about a Jedi, but they're not focused on, like, oh, we got to make sure that we've got this X amount of Jedi in this story, right? And that's also part of one of the reasons why I really liked Resistance, because, yeah, you had some kids who were maybe Force sensitive, but the story wasn't about the Jedi. It was about Kazuda being a fucking little cutie pie and also slightly a klutzy fuck up. But, you know, it's nice to be like, oh, the story isn't completely revolving around the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Sure, you get Jedi influences in Rogue One. You see Darth Vader, but it's because his scenes are so few and far between that gives him the impact that he has, right? Mm-hmm. I know people are always like, oh my god, the hallway scene, best scene in Rogue One. I'm like, actually, the best Darth Vader scene in that movie is when he's fucking careful not to choke on your aspirations, director. Like, fuck. Those bars were the most bars that Vader ever spat. Like, let's be real. That whole thing. Like,
Andor is very much of Rogue One in terms of, like, you know, tone and thematics. And a big message of Rogue One was the Jedi are gone. It's kind of them dealing with that reality. Like, the Jedi could not save us here. Because, like, look at Aldhani in Andor. Have done that if they were around. But like, we don't have.
You cut off. You said, think about Aldhani, and then you cut off, and then you were like,
think about there. Hold on. There we go. You're moving again.
Okay. Now you're not.
Could have done that. They could have soloed it.
A Jedi, yeah.
But we don't have Jedi to save us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, like genocide, they were genocided, and now we don't have our heroes anymore, and that's why. And
we're all poorer for it.
And Luthen and like people like Cassian and Luthen and Mon and Saw need to step up. Like, they need to take the place of the Jedi, bringing the peace.
Yeah, which, you know, I think it's really important to see, like, regular people doing that, because, you know, if it was just the Jedi leading the rebellion, it would have the issue of the rebellion is detached from the average person, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Mon is the leader of the rebellion, right? She's like chief of state, chancellor of the alliance to restore the republic, all of these things. But beneath her, you have mostly normal people who are just like, you know what? Fuck the empire. Sure, she has people who are like senators in the Imperial Senate. She's got Leia. She's got like military leaders, but she also has just like regular people. And Cassian is one of those regular people, right?
Yeah.
And even Jin is one of those regular people. Bodhi, like the Rogue One group is essentially those random guys that fight for the rebellion and, you know, die for the cause. And part of the reason why I think the non-military leaders of the rebellion have such an interesting like arc in that is because so much of their job is to make sure that these deaths weren't in vain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I love Luthen, actually. He's fascinating to me. He's just a guy. He wants to be just a guy. He doesn't have the luxury. He burned his future of being just a guy for a sunrise that he will never see. Is Luthen Knauf?
But yeah, I'm excited to see where he goes after this.
Yeah, I think he's Luthenoff. Luthenoff. That's it. I am Luthenoff. Please laugh. That was hilarious. Did I cut out? I hate technology. Anyways. What are you most looking forward to in Andor season 2?
Probably just honestly, if I'm honest, probably K2.
You're excited for K2?
Yeah,
we love K2.
Like just getting to see the origins and how they're gonna do that. Like I'm very excited.
Yeah, K2 is a bitch, and I love him so much.
From a narrative perspective, more of the like on the subject of Luthen, probably more of the Spy Master stuff, seeing how that plays in, how it's explored. That like a lot of the Rebellion is just essentially a war movie, whereas Andor gets to have a lot more espionage than we typically see, and that'll be going forward. Like, you know, with the ISB and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of interesting details there.
Yeah. Who is your favorite original Andor character?
Favorite original character?
From Andor.
Honestly,
don't say Perrin.
It's probably either Luthen or Cyril Karn. Because Cyril Karn is so interesting. He is very much just the idea of somebody who just believes in the system to an insane degree, to the point where like you just don't get that kind of character very often in the Empire, because he's not like mustache twirlingly evil. He's literally just a guy doing his job, and he's like I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes moving forward too. And Luthen, you know, we spent this whole episode talking about why he's great.
Talking about Luthen, yeah. I think most people like Luthen. People with taste, anyways. Who is your least favorite original Andor character? Don't say Clea.
Tim.
Tim, so real.
Tim double M.
Tim with 2 M's. We only have room for 1 double M in this fucking fandom, and that is reserved for Mon Mothma. And that's her cutesy little nicknames that the Rebel pilots give to her. Makes her feel very cool and official. They don't think she knows about it. She does. Yeah. Tim. I don't think we need to get much further into why we don't like Tim. He sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bix, if you're gonna cry over a man, can you please cry over a man that's better than Tim? I'm begging. All right. Because you're gonna have to answer this one multiple times. One of your favorite things about Mon Mothma. Go. Be nice. She pays your bills.
She doesn't really.
How dare you? She cures your partner's depression, mostly.
Thing about Mon Mothma is her unflinching willingness to try to make in terms of like, not falling to what happened in the past, trying to forge a path forward and learn from mistakes. And even if she doesn't, she's always headstrong in the fact that we can have lasting change in our lifetime. Like we don't have to wait. And type of character that we don't see very often in terms of like, it's usually like a warrior or a soldier or whatever. But most times when we see politicians in fiction, they suck.
That's because real life politicians suck.
Yeah. Whereas Mon is kind of the ideal of what a politician can be. Someone who fights for you, with you. I think she's a very interesting character and a great leader of the rebellion.
As Mon says in her speech in Nobody's Listening, which is a very apt name for the episode where she's trying to give a speech in the Senate and she's getting fucking heckled for saying things like, our first responsibility is to the citizens who have sent us here. People are screaming, bah! And I'm like, maybe y'all shouldn't fuck it. It just feels a little bit too on the nose.
Yeah.
When you hear like, oh, well, yeah, I don't care what my constituents think. They voted in me, and it's all up to me what happens. It's like, actually, you shouldn't be in politics. You suck. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you there. She's pretty awesome for that. Is there anything else we want to say about Luthen?
No, I think
before
we
end this call, go change shirts and pretend it's a different day so we can talk about Saw. I'm kidding. We won't change shirts. I'm wearing my Mon Mothma jumper. You're not getting this off me. That's it for now. All right. Well, thank you once again for joining us, Louay. Where can you be found online? Do you want to be found online?
Sure. So follow me. I'm l-sabersmith on Blue Sky. That's basically most of what I use in terms of social media.
These days, yeah.
I argue with people about Star Wars. That's most of what I do on there.
That's true. The prequels are good and I will fight you.
Literally. In my H-bomb
core. Is there anything else you want to plug at all?
No, not really.
Okay,
kind of boring.
Cool. We, the Mothmanet, can be found at Mothma Updates on most social media platforms. I, your host, can be found at Bejeweled Mothma on those same social media platforms. Yes, we exist on X. No, Mothma Updates does not update on X anymore. My friend still has Friday Star Wars Celebration passes. If you are in need, please reach out. My Mon Mothma panel, Senator Rebel Chancellor, who is Mon Mothma, is Friday the 18th of April at 4 p.m. on the fan stage. Come watch me yap about Mon Mothma, and come watch Louay try to rein me in and keep me on track. because I go on a lot of tangents about Mon Mothma. I can't be stopped. I need someone to rein me in. If you can't make it, at least one person minimum will be recording the panel, and it will go up on YouTube. Probably when I come back from Japan. I don't know. Maybe I'll post it while I'm there. Jury is still out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Thank you again, Louay, and everyone watching at home or at work or on a train. Please don't watch it while operating a motor vehicle. I don't know. Wherever you're watching from. I hope that Andor Season 2 makes everyone not completely depressed. It says in my notes to say happy, but I don't. If you guys are happy witnessing the Gorman massacre, something is fucking wrong with you. But I hope that you're not completely depressed and that you don't have to send. You'll probably need to send Tony Gilroy your therapy bills, but that's fine. He could hopefully afford it. Thank you, everyone, and may the Force be with you.
And also,
go again.
And also with you.
There we go.
Thanks, technology.